This video is for lesson 4-5. The learning target is I can convert measurements using dimensional analysis. Please open up your textbook to page 290. So the first thing that you need to do is to have a chart like this. You need to know your basic units of length, weight, and capacity, which means our volume, and their conversions. So go ahead and pause this recording and make yourself like an index card with this information on it, or you can actually find this on the back cover of your textbook. But these are important measurements to know. You need to know that 1 foot is 12 inches. 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. 1 mile is the same as 5,280 feet. When you're measuring weights, 1 pound measures 16 ounces, and 1 ton measures 2,000 pounds. When we're measuring volume and capacity, 1 cup is equal to 8 fluid ounces. 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. 1 quart is equal to 2 pints. And 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. And down here on capacity, you kind of might remember from everyday math or from elementary school, the gallon guy, that inside 1 gallon there are 4 quarts. And in each quart there are 2 pints. And I'm going to run out of space and won't be able to do it with the marker, but then inside each of these peas there would be 2 cups. And inside each pea and each cup would be an 8 for 8 ounces. So, why do you need to know these? Well, today what we're doing is converting larger units to smaller units. So we're going to be comparing like yards and changing them into feet. And when it's a one-to-one relationship, like 1 yard, it's easy to say, oh, it's 3 feet. Or if I had 2 yards, I could say it's 6 feet. But that doesn't always work. We don't always get nice rounded off whole numbers. Sometimes we get fractions or mixed numbers. So today's lesson is going to help us deal with that. So today we're going to be taking this basic information of 1 yard equals 3 feet, and we're going to be changing it into a ratio. Remember, ratios compare 2 things, and we're going to be writing it in fraction form. And the main thing that we're going to need to remember today is to put on our labels. We're going to use all of our multiply and fraction rules, but we're just adding labels. So, like a unit rate that we studied back in chapter 1, a unit ratio is one where the denominator is 1 unit. So the ratio 3 feet to 1 yard is called a unit ratio. And today, as we are making our changes and converting, we're going to be working with a process called dimensional analysis. And it's the process of including units of measures as factors when you compute. So, like always, I really don't usually like how the book sometimes lays it out. So we're going to X that one out, and then I'd like you to do what I'm doing down here. So to start off, we look at our original problem, and we have 20 feet, and they want us to change it into inches. Our first step is to make this into a unit ratio. And unit ratio simply means that it's something over 1. So we're going to go over here and we're going to write down our 20 feet. And you have to have your labels with it. And we're going to put that over 1. That's step 1. Step 2, now we're going to make our second fraction. And we want to change the feet into inches. So I put that label right on top. Now in addition then, I know that I'm going feet to inches, so I'm going to be comparing that against feet. So it's actually going to be the label at the bottom of my fraction as well. Now I'll go back and take a look at my chart. Okay, and if you looked at the chart, it says that 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, well now these numbers right here are the numbers for my second fraction. I keep the labels together. So 12 inches right here then goes to the top of my second fraction. And the 1 foot then gives me my denominator. So my fractions are 20 feet over 1 times 12 inches over 1 foot. So now what we're going to do is do our regular multiplication. Now, if I had just a simple fraction, and this part I don't want you to write, this in the box you don't have to. If I had 20 over 1 times 12 over 20, we would know that with simplifying, I can just cross off the matching numbers. We could divide by 20, and we would just get 1 left over. Well, this same concept works with our labels. I have feet on top of my fraction, and I have feet at the bottom of the second fraction. They are across from each other, so we can simplify and get rid of those labels. Now I can check my numbers. 1 and 12 we can't simplify. 20 and 1 we can't simplify. So I go ahead and multiply. It's going to be 20 times 12 over 1 times 1. So if we take 20 times 12, we get 240 over 1, which then simplifies to 240. And the only label that was left in my fractions was inches. So 20 feet is equal to 240 inches. So let's do a couple got it's here. And remember, the key thing is to get it set up straight. So we are comparing yards and feet. So I take my 36 yards and I put that over 1 because that's my unit ratio. I put my multiplication sign down, and now my second label comes right here because I'm comparing yards to feet. Yards to feet. So now I go ahead and write my label at the bottom is also yards because I'm comparing feet and yards. So if you go back and look on your chart, you'll find out that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So the 3 then becomes my numerator because it sticks with its label, and my denominator will be the 1. So looking at my sheet here, I see I have yards on top and I have yards down here on the bottom, and they're diagonal so I can cross them out. I cannot simplify the 36 and the 1 or the 3 and the 1. So now I'm going to rewrite it. I have 36 times 3 over 1 times 1. So my denominator is 1. And if I do some chicken scratch down here, I find out that 6 times 3 is 18. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So it's 108 feet. So my answer is 108 feet. So 36 yards will give me 108 feet. All right, I'm going to move to the next screen. This takes up a lot of space, so I'm going to do question B here on a new slide. So the challenge here is that I don't have a whole number. This capital T stands for tons. So this means I don't even have 1 whole ton. I have 3/4 of a ton. Well, we are not going to write 3/4 over 1. That's just too messy. That would not work for us. We actually already have our fraction built. We just get to bring it down. So we're going to take 3/4 and just write it down. We won't use a 1 this time. This is already already set up for us. And we'll leave our label up on top. Even though it applies to both of them, we leave it on top. Now I'm going to multiply, and my second label is a pound, so I put it on top. And we're comparing tons and pounds, so the ton goes at the bottom. So I know from looking at my chart that 1 ton is equal to 2,000 pounds. So the 1 will be right there by my T for tons, and I'll put 2,000 up here on top. So let's look and see if we can simplify. I can simplify my labels. The tons disappear, so I know my final answer will be in pounds. And the 1 and the 3 can't be simplified, but I do know that 4 goes into 2,000. So I'm going to divide by 4, just like I would have with regular fraction work. Divide 4 by 4 and I get 1. and 2,000 divided by 4 is 500. So let's rewrite this. I have 3 times 500 over 1 times 1. So 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times those zeros stay at 0 over 1. So our answer is 1,500 pounds, because that's my leftover label right there. All right, so now we know how to use whole numbers. This problem showed us how to use a fraction to start with. Let's look at C. C is different in that they gave us a mixed number, but we know all about that. That's the same thing as 3 halves of a quart equaling how many pints? All we have to do is that extra step of multiplying the 1 times the 2 and adding 2 to the top, and we get that. So now it's in fraction form, just like our previous problem. I just bring down the fraction. The label quart stays with the numerator, and my second label is pints, and the bottom then is quarts. So I know that there are, in 1 quart is equal to 2 pints. So my numbers go in, the 1 quart and 2 pints. I can see some simplifying. I can get rid of my quart labels, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. All right, so now I'll set it up. I'm going to have 3 times 1 left on my numerator and 1 times 1 for the bottom. And 1 times 3 is 3, and over 1, which is 3, and then this is the only label I have left, pints. So it's worth 3 pints. All right, let's take a look at the story problem. We have 1/4 cup of fertilizer mixed in, and he wants to know how many fluid ounces should he use per bulb. So we're going to put 1 over 4, the cup goes on top, times, and fluid ounces. Now fluid ounces are different than the weight that you measure. So it's measuring volume, not just the density. And so on the bottom we put our cups. So I know that in 1 cup it is equal to 8 fluid ounces. So the 1 goes on the bottom and the 8 goes on top. Then we can go ahead and simplify. The cups disappear. We can divide by 4, and we get 1 and 2. So 1 times 2 over 1 times 1 equals 2 over 1, which equals 2 fluid ounces. So why don't we try this one? Jens runs 1/8 of a mile before tennis practice. How many feet does she run? Why don't you go ahead and pause the recording, try this one on your own, and then turn it back on and see if your work matches mine. All right, so I set it up as 1/8 mile and over feet in miles on my second fraction, and there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Then I simplified my labels, and the 8 goes into 5,280 660 times. So when we work it out, we get 660 feet. Well, now we're going to be talking about what if, on the previous problems, we always went from big to small. Now we're going to go from small to big, and we're going to notice that there's a change. So we're going to X out their explanation, and I know you don't have much room in your book, so you're going to have to go over in your workspace. So we're going to start off just like we did before. We're going to compare 15 quarts to gallons. So 15 quarts over 1 times gallons. And we can't put G because G is recognized as meaning grams, and we're not measuring in grams here. So gallons to quarts. So if you know, looking at your chart, you'll find out that 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. So keep the labels. The 1 here then now becomes my numerator, and the 4 on the quarts then becomes the denominator. So usually we always had the 1 on the bottom, but now because we're going from small to big, the numerator is going to be 1. So now we just continue like regular. cross off our matching labels. We can't simplify, so we have 15 times 1 over 1 times 4, 15 over 4, and we don't panic. We know what to do. If we have an improper fraction, we change it to a mixed number. I can take out 3 whole groups, and I'll have 3/4 left over, and my last label that's left is gallons. Now, over here in the book, they did write it as a decimal. If you look at labels on packages in the store, when you buy like orange juice or milk, you'll see that they changed the 3 3/4 to a decimal. And we know that it would be 3 3/4. That's the same as 3 decimal. And 3/4 is 75 cents. So it would be 3.75. So let's take a look at these. Again, we're going from small to big, but we set it up just like before. So 2,640 feet over 1 times mile, converting it to miles, so then feet is on the bottom. And I know that 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. So that's where I get my numbers. I put the 1 as my numerator because it's 1 mile, and my denominator is going to be this 5,280 because that's where my label is. So now I can go ahead and simplify. My labels come off, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 2,640 times 1 is 2,640, and 5,280 is times 1 is itself. So I know that I can divide by 10. It's a 10, not a 6. And that takes off the zeros. So now I'm down to 264. Oops, sorry. Got to erase that. $64, there we go, over 528. Well, they're both even. I know I can divide by 2, but actually this one, just for our speed today, we can actually divide by 264. And we're going to get 1 over 2, because I just happen to know that 2,640 is half of our 5,000. So this 264 feet is half of a mile. So let's try letter F. I'm going to move to a new screen. You just keep working in your book. We're going to set it up. 100 ounces over 1 times something, many pounds in ounces down here. And I know that 1 pound equals 16 ounces. So my numerator is going to be 1 this time and 16 for my denominator. I'm going to simplify my labels. And then I know I can divide these guys by 4. So I get 25 and 4. And that's as far as we can go. So this is equal to 25 times 1 is 25, and 1 times 4 is 4. So now I'm going to rename it as a mixed number. 4 comes out of there 6 whole times. That uses up 24, so I have 1/4 remainder. And my label goes on as pounds because that's the one that's left up on top. Go ahead and try this one on your own and turn on the recording to see if your work matches mine. So I did 3 over 1 times 1 over 2 because I matched up my labels, and 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. So I get 3 over 2, which is equal to 1 1/2 then pints. And here we have another story problem, 4 1/2 feet, and she wants to know how many yards. So 4 1/2 feet equals how many yards? So we'll start off by renaming it. So we get 9 over 2 feet equals yards over feet. And I know that there is 1 yard, there is 3 feet. So I'm going to simplify. I'm going to divide by 3 on both of these, so I get 3 and 1. So we get 3 over 2, which equals 1 1/2 yard. So your practice assignment tonight is page 293 to 294. I'd like you to try 1 through 10, 12, and 16. Good luck, and let me know if you have any problems, or come see me if you need some help.